That's Showbiz, baby.
Welcome to episode 23 of That Showbiz Baby podcast, your all things music business and media podcast. I'm your host, Joe, with my co-host, Colin McKay, and it's the return of the boys only episode. This is exciting because we've had so many guests.
Yeah, it's been fun, but it's now that we're taking it back to the boys.
The boys are back in town.
Oh man, we're gonna get copyright trademark. Thanks, Joe.
But Colin, where can they find us? Besides the podcast?
You can find us at Twitter at ShowbizBabyPod, Facebook and Instagram at That Showbiz Baby Podcast, and email thatshowbizbabypodcast@gmail.com. Questions, concerns, topic suggestions, or if you just want to say hi.
Yeah, we're always gonna take a hi.
I'll take a hi always. You know who's saying hi and bringing it back in? And Joe, you're very excited to talk about this. I know you are.
I guess. Yeah, I am. I'm very
well, we
excited.
talked about it for like 10 minutes before setting up a little bit, so I think you're very excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited. But Taylor Swift is now free to re-record her old catalog. So this is a kind of a duo article that I kind of combined from Billboard and Rolling Stone with a little bit of variety in there as well. But Taylor Swift is now free to re-record her old catalog of songs, the albums 1 through 5. Why would Swift re-record her songs that already exist is what you might be thinking. And it's because a historic deal between Scooter Braun and Swift's former label, Big Machine, soured Swift's relationship with Scott Bruschetta, who was part of Big Machine Records. And they sold Swift's catalog to Braun for a historic $300 million, which is insane, even for music business acquisitions and buys and everything like that. So that was crazy. There's a lot that happened. It was very messy. The split up was very public, very crazy, honestly, nightmare scenario to anybody working at the label. But here's kind of a quick breakdown of what happened and what was reported. So Swift decided to part ways with Big Machine in order to ink a new deal with Republic Records and Universal Music Group, which was historic in itself because Swift was the highest grossing artist by a landslide and was a serious loss for the company because she was definitely the highest grossing artist.
100%.
Yeah. So shortly after Swift's departure from the label, Big Machine announced that it had struck a deal with Scooter Braun, Justin Bieber's manager and formerly Kanye West's manager, to own Swift's masters for $300 million. Now, if you are a Swift fan, you know the feud between Kanye West and Taylor Swift, but you might not know there is a feud between Scooter Braun and T-Swizzle. Yeah.
T-Swizzle.
After the announcement, Swift took to social media to denounce the agreement and stated that she had no knowledge that the label would sell to Braun and that artists should have the right to own their own masters. Swift stated, "For years I pleaded for a chance to own my own work. Instead, I was given the opportunity to earn one album back at a time, one for every new one I turned in." Swift began her post. From there, she detailed how she knew Bruschetta would eventually sell into the label, but claims that she had no knowledge of it. So, and that Braun was knew what he was doing, basically, is what she said. So, after Braun bought the masters and it was public, a pop frenzy went on social media with many artists giving their opinions over support of the masters or of Swift. With Yale Braun, Scooter's wife, putting out a statement stating that Swift passed on the opportunity to own her masters and that Scott Swift was a shareholder at Big Machine. Scott Swift is her father. Was a shareholder at Big Machine, as well as claiming that Scooter supported Swift's career and was hoping to build with Swift given his new stake in her back catalog. Bruschetta later put out a statement with a blog post titled, quote, "So it's time for some truth, ... So in the post, he stated that Scott Swift wasn't on the shareholders' call, but was represented by a lawyer from Taylor Swift's management company, 13 Management, while 13 Management executive and Big Machine's shareholder, Frank Bell, was on the call as well. He went on to say that he sent Swift a courtesy text ahead of the announcement a week prior to the announcement. Now, on to the juicy part, Colin. Are you ready for this?
Juicy.
Because this is the juicy music business part.
Okay.
So, according to Swift, Big Machine offered to buy back her masters one album at a time with every new album she would record for the label. However, Bruschetta refutes this and posted a screenshot of a portion of the proposed new deal and stated T Swift requests a 7-year deal where Big Machine assigns ownership of all previous audio and audiovisual material over to her. BMLG's response agreed to the proposal but asked for 10 years. He then pasted a text that claimed Swift sent him Swift sent him moments before her Republic UMG deal was announced, stating, "Owning my masters was very important to me, but I've since realized that there are things that mean even more to me in the bigger picture. What we've accomplished together will be a lasting legacy and the case study on excellent partnerships, and may it continue," which honestly is kind of sad to read now. So here's a couple of things. So Swift's agreement with leaving Big Machine is important in a lot of ways because A, she's been with Big Machine since the start of her career. That was historic in itself. Like, that was a huge deal. I mean, everybody, especially in Nashville, everybody was freaking out.
And I would argue it made Big Machine into the label they are today.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they would refute that either. Right. But another interesting little T there. Little T, Colin.
Yeah. Oh, God.
I'm picking up my T right now. You can watch on YouTube.
Hopefully.
But here's a little T for that. So Taylor Swift's current agreement, allows her to re-record her old masters with stuff. And it's starting now, basically in November. But another interesting thing is there's those two deals that we stated before that might have happened. Because to be honest with you, we don't really know the full agreement. We'll never know the full agreement unless it's in the court.
Right. Like, we don't even know if they got written from deal points, like if it actually got written down or if it was just more of like, here's the bullet points. Would you do an agreement like this rather than like the full print?
And a lot of people don't know this, but there could be something stated in one paragraph of an agreement and then completely refuted in another paragraph.
Right. That's why the lawyers are involved.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, even though Bruschetta posted that screenshot, it could very well be different later down in the agreement. However, I want to point out saying that this is very unprecedented. Like, artists owning their masters is very unprecedented.
Right.
You have to be megastar level if you're signed with a major label or any label, really.
It happens, but it's exceedingly rare. And it is definitely an upper echelon. You have a lot of heat on you, artist, that you get a deal even close to that.
Exactly. And like the main thing for this that I want to hone in is that, you know, Taylor Swift is at a completely different level than I would argue 90% of the music industry. You know, like, I mean, she's at a she's in the 1-2%ers, right?
100%.
So it's very different when Taylor Swift is coming out to her audience saying artists should own their masters. Mm-hmm. Yes, I in my opinion, I agree that artists should own their masters. I think maybe not all masters, because to a level extent,
that's the exchange that's actually happening.
Exactly, because you have to put a lot of money into making a record, especially a highly produced record. So if you're signed to a label, the label's going to want to own your masters. That's where their power is. So it's not shocking to me that labels don't want this to happen.
Right.
But here's kind of the thing is that Taylor Swift is coming at this, in my opinion, as a way of, this is for me, I want to own my masters, but I'm going to kind of say that, artists in general should own their masters. And that might be a good thing, especially if someone at the top starts it. But I think it comes down to, that might work out if you have the clout to say that, but it might not work out for the little guy. You know what I mean?
Right. It's an unprecedented
It's a lot easier, and I'm not going to say easy because it's not easy anyway. Like,
you have more bargaining power, I think.
Exactly.
Would be the
you have
word.
way more bargaining power for it. And another thing is the two agreements that were stated before, I kind of went off track there, but with, Taylor Swift saying that she would trade like a 1-to-1 album per album deal. That in itself, crazy. That's pretty good deal.
It's an upper echelon move.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to be in a 10% margin probably of, the music industry to even get close to that.
Exactly. But to say later when they stated, she wants 7 years, and they were like, oh, let's do 10 instead. That's honestly an even better deal.
Well,
because it takes years sometimes for these records to get made.
I think personally that the 10-year, I think what they mean by 10-year is there's probably a proposal, there's probably an initial period, but then there's deliverables in that 10-year period that have to be gone, or the clock will stop if it's not delivered at the same time.
Yeah. I
think personally, when you're talking about that 7 to 10-year deal, it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, well, that will give us, let's go back to the beginning. She's at an upper echelon of deals. Like any deal that you're making with any company, you have to have enough clout to, even facilitate the deal first off. And then whatever your baseline is changes dramatically from, clout to not clout and how smart you are. So like if you went in there and you're a very hot artist, and you said, hey, you're going to give me the baseline agreement because every record company is going to hope for the best deal, and then they give it to you. You have enough heat or clout to actually argue those points. And Taylor does too, because if she was signed, she signed to Republic UMG, and I'm sure the deal was pretty good for her, obviously, because she had enough, clout and heat, and they argued it and stuff like that. Same deal here, but she's like any artist at the end of a rope in negotiations, because like she's at the top of what that heat and clout can give you, which is access to your masters. That's why they're replying back, we want 10 years, because they want 10 years to exploit those masters in whatever percentage, because what they're going to do is that she's going to own the masters. Probably her LLC or some other corporate entity will own the masters, and then they're going to give the license to exploit them to the record company. And that's how they were going to make the money. And in their response, which is what I'm really amazed at, is that not only are they not just going, no, you can't have all of that. They go, okay, here you go. You can have all your audio, visual related material, but 10 years. That is the crazy part about this.
Yeah.
Is that offer was even given. Again, in my opinion, even though Swift is top of the top, probably top 5 artists of the last decade, and probably will be for the next decade, like this is at the end of the rope, pretty much. There's like so much things, like we never see this. We always see the opposite, where it's like the artist can give away their soul, their money, signed it to the devil at the bottom. We're the exact opposite. We're at the top where the record labels are, okay, we can't give you anymore. Really, we can't give you anymore.
Well, and to a certain extent, it's because record labels now, even though they have found a way to make money with streaming, they are still not to where they were at their peaks, right? Like back in the early 2000s, like late 90s, you could argue, that those times when they were selling, $20 CDs, that was their height, period. But, now they're not making as much money. All of the splits happen. There's, people still have to pay for the record to be made. I usually don't side. I feel like an old man.
I know, we always come in here.
I usually don't side with labels.
I don't mean to be like, the devil behind the cloak and be like, all these artists are just, these poor record companies. No, they're making a hell of money.
They're still making a shit ton of money.
From the evidence, not the evidence, but the alleged things that have gone on here, from what it's stated in screenshots, if I believe to be true, I personally think this is a one in a lifetime kind of deal. This is and she chose to walk away from that. And
that's the argument that Braun's wife made.
Right.
And that a lot of other people made in the industry as well.
Did she do any directing towards her fans and social media about this deal sucks something?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I want to get clarity on that.
Once the deal was public, once the deal was announced, that the $300 million deal was announced. This was I want to say, I think it was about a month after it was announced that Swift was leaving the company. So it was pretty fresh.
Because Scooter was buying it. Okay.
When that happened, Swift went on social media and basically was just like, I hate Braun.
They're taking my masters.
Yeah,
this is all I have, kind of thing.
Bruschetta should have known how much I hate Braun. I always say, I hate him, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. came out. I think most of it was on Tumblr was when she did it. So very directed at her fans to take action in some way.
It was on Tumblr, not Twitter?
It was on Tumblr.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right, keep going.
It was on Tumblr, and I think she posted other stuff on Twitter and stuff like that. But it's like knowing how powerful her fan base is, like she knows how powerful.
I think this was a calculated move.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
And you stated off mic, you thought this was a good move on her part in terms of just
like if I'm
pressure.
playing, here's my thing. I think in her position, she's at the, okay, let's talk about my example. She, in any deal, like this deal, when she's trying to make it, she's at the end of using her clout. Her clout is the ability to have this deal in the first place, is to have, a 10-year contract where you own all your audio material again, if that's true. You know what I mean? That's the end of her clout. That's the end the company was willing to do. So she went, how can I get more clout? And it's through public pressure is what I think that she thought maybe. Now I get it. Masters in your music, I used to be a musician. I would be very distraught if I thought a person I personally maybe hated everything about them, owned my music on like a intellectual level, like actually, they now get the money from what I worked hard for. That is insulting. I get that. And she has the right to be outraged. But at the same time, she knows what she's doing.
You walked away from
she walked away from the deal, which is fine if she wants to walk away from the deal. But to say that her, posting about it and doing all that stuff was purely just anguish, I'm sad about this, I'm mad about this, and not I want support from this in some way.
Yeah.
Because again, like we were saying earlier, she's like the thing that made Big Machine, in my opinion. And like, she is the thing from Big Machine. I've never fucking heard of anything else from Big Machine, until Taylor Swift, And so like, that's why that power of her doing those tweets and stuff is, so monumental, because she's out of clout. She can't get a better deal. How can I introduce more leeway? The public is going to hate y'all if you do this. You're going to have terrible stuff. You're going to have all my fans maybe boycotting you. Again, this is all alleged. I don't know what she thought about it. She might have just been a mad person, in a person she thought is terrible owns her masters, and I get that. But at the same time, she's smart. She's smart enough to know her power.
A lot of industry people say Taylor Swift is very, very calculated in a good way in terms of a business sense.
The thing I want to say about this is it's not dumb. It's a smart move.
Yeah.
Like with her and trying to be like, I have nothing left. What can I do? I have a legion of fans that mostly will, support me in what I say in my perspective, rather than these industry people maybe they've never heard of in their life. So like, and generally in the public sentiment, there's always the Goliath labels versus the artist that's already perpetuated.
Yeah.
And then the stuff in here is so complicated that if you're listening to this podcast, you're not the person we're talking about. Like, people who, this involves IP law, this involves learning about, standards of deals, this is about industry knowledge that you have to know about her deal.
Standard,
so you can't, it's hard to explain all of that in a tweet and somehow get out of all the shit that Big Machine was getting negatively from that.
Yeah.
It's just hard. You have to know.
It's hard for someone to educate the public on that,
right?
Because there's so many moving parts to it.
It's like if somebody came up to me and was like, "Oh, I work as a contractor. I build buildings, and this guy's doing buildings wrong," and I'm being like, "All I know is that you're saying this. Can you explain it?" And it was all this stuff I had no idea about it because I'm not a contractor.
Yeah.
That's like what it's like here for most of the public. They just have this person who they view positively already, who they trust, who's already viewed as a righteous person and has kind of put her brand in there. And I agree with a lot of things she said, and I'm happy for her and what she said, especially like socially and stuff like that. But to say that I just think it's ignorant to say she didn't know what she was doing. Like,
oh yeah, she absolutely did.
So like, that's the thing.
And I think most people would say she knew what she was doing.
I get that, but I just want to get that across that I think it's a smart move by her, but I think the ignorance argument is off the table, because I've seen that just being like, oh, she's just mad because this terrible person owns it.
Yeah.
And I was like, she's been famous for a decade now. she knows what happens when she says things, on her platforms.
I will say too, since leaving, I mean, she's had tremendous success with Folklore, her newest record, and she even apparently in some of the lyrics has stated to the disagreement as well. But apparently that's really her only public statement since Borchetta's blog post.
I think the thing for her at this point was it kind of reminds me of her whole anti-Spotify thing back in the day.
Yeah, which it's really weird to remember.
It's really weird to remember that if you're old enough to remember that, or if you just remember that when Taylor Swift was, not about Spotify, it was like we should not, deal with these royalty rates and stuff. And
Radiohead,
and she was doing the same thing there. Is what we kind of talked about off mic. Is like she was just pushing they don't have enough clout than what their masters and stuff are worth to Spotify, so they thought, let's get some public pressure on it. She's done this in the past, but like the point that I'm trying to make is that she's smart. She's trying to do the things that she can to get she got a crazy deal that was unheard of kind of stuff that's like behind closed doors. Only a few artists have ever got this. And she was trying to take it one step further and they said no, and I get that. And that's why she's, that's the thing. I'll have to praise Swift on this. She's a great, entertainer and she knows how to run her business.
Yeah.
So like, and this is the kind of
songwriter will say she knows how to write a song.
This is the kind of stuff that, takes you one step further. Is if you can push a deal one step further than they're comfortable with, that's going to save you, millions of dollars in the end, especially at this level immediately. Obviously, when you're a little artist, you have to plan for those $1 million if that happens. But she has the potential, already, if she puts out anything like Folklore, where it's just going to go to the top. You know?
I think with this too, it's so weird because it's just so, it really started hitting people at like personal levels. And I mean, with the music industry, with the entertainment industry in general, everybody is so open to the public, at all times. Sometimes it's hard to see what's a business strategy and what is just like personal.
Like, I get it. Like, I don't like when, people and artists, a bunch of artists, in a record label get screwed. And so this guy up here can make $200,000 more dollars a year, you know, but like, I hate that. And I hate that a lot. But at the same time, this is the kind of stuff where it's like the amount of money that's difference in these small things with her being that big is the amount to staff a department, you know what I mean? From like royalties and stuff like that. And to pay those guys who are making $30,000 to $40,000 a year.
And like we said before, this was a hit for Big Machine. Like when she left, people were talking about, is the record label gonna make it? Like, because she was holding so much.
And all we could hope for was that, they had invested in the time they had Taylor and other artists and growing them and stuff, that now it's, enough that it's not going to be the worst hit in the world for them. Yeah.
Well, I will say now, I do think generally in terms of who's the winner out of this, I think Swift is the winner. Publicly, at least.
I think the thing with it is that if you were in the industry, because most industry people I talked to who know about this were like, no, she got a great deal and she just walked away because she wasn't comfortable with the deal terms.
Person you talk to is like,
right. If you're not a music industry person or like really versed in this kind of stuff, it's really hard. I mean, we had to go to a music industry website and get all this information. That's not readily like in the public eye.
Yeah, and a lot of this too is some of it's old news, like it would happen a year ago, Right. So it's just popping back up.
We'll have to see what's going to happen with their re-records, because I'd be really interested to see
how she's going to market those and kind of what it's going to sound like.
Is she going to stir the fire with it, or is she going to be like, guys, here's a new version of my song that everybody liked? Yeah. Or is she going to be like, do
you think it's going to be remastered?
Right. Well, or is it going to be like, we beat the corporate machine? You know what I mean? Like we did it.
The big machine.
Yeah, that's so bad. All right. Well, we got to leave off of that.
On.
Okay. So moving to another big machine, literally, is Spotify, and their big machine got some new tools for artists and labels.
God, these are getting out of hand.
So they have a new tool, and it's a new data point, which I'll get into that later. And basically that data point is being able to be controlled by rights holders of the music. So if you're like an indie artist or you're a label that's actually, has the rights to the music and you control it. So this data point will create a new signal within Spotify's personalized algorithm that will allow the rights holders to prioritize songs. So the data point is one of thousands that already affect, quote, personalized listening, recommendations, including listening history, songs added to playlists, time of day, weather, release dates, and songs from users with similar tastes, among other elements. Although the new data point, quote, will be weighed differently depending on the situation and the listener, but is not expected to have an outsized influence on what gets recommended. So it's not going to like beat all the other data points out. And there's thousands of these data points that they use, like, what other artists you listen to, all that kind of stuff. So it's not like, oh, this is number 4. No, it's thousands of data points. Spotify product marketing lead Charlton Lamb tells Billboard that, quote, one thing that's become a particular focus for us over the last couple years is building more tools for artists to grow their audience, build their career, and a lot of those tools that we've built so far are really focused on promoting new music, like playlist submission, release radar, marquee. But our team talks to artists all the time, and what we've heard is they want more opportunities to connect with the music beyond just release week, and especially with their catalog music, and we think that's right. After a testing period, which has been given to some insider artists and labels, this new tool that controls the data point will be available to any rights holder, artist, or label. And there's also no budget or direct payment needed for this tool. But there is a catch, which I know somebody was waiting for the other shoe to fall on the line. So, as Billboard elaborates, instead, the rights holder will be paid out a lower promotional royalty rate for any specific listens from that program through the royalty rate for the songs. Though the royalty rate for the songs will remain the same if a listen comes from any other place other than autoplay and radio. There are also no guarantees of placements or plays for any artist or label. If a prioritized song is performing well with listeners, it will continue to show up. If it's not, it will be pulled back. After the company runs tests in autoplay and radio, it will test the tool out in other personalized areas of Spotify. So Lamb finishes the article stating, quote, it's really important to us that we make this kind of tool accessible for artists and at any stage in their career and artists of any kind. Lamb basically also adds that the result would be a positive return on investment for rights holders, although Spotify did not say how much lower the promotional royalty rate will be. Quote, we were looking for the model to be more accessible and democratic and fair. Music recommendations shouldn't be about whether our algorithm thinks you want to listen to it, Lamb says. Quote, we think artists can be a bigger part of these recommendations, so this test allows artists and labels to identify music that's a priority to them. So so you have the data point that you can control and say like, hey, I released, this album last year. I had thought, this is the anniversary. It was my biggest album. I'm going to push, hey, it's been 1 year since I released this. So let's make this my priority songs. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the idea of it, or if you just release and stuff like that. I think the most potent thing in here is the way that this Charlton Lamb from Spotify product marketing team talks. And I think it's very important to what this tool has kind of a market for and why it's being created. Do you notice every time he talks about artists to grow their audiences, he always talks about the creator? I think part of this is cool. This is an upper echelon thing to get more music on Spotify. This is like a reason why, you would choose to put your song on Spotify rather than somewhere else. But I also think it's part marketing tool to say like, look, we've created tools for artists. And so you don't get lost in the sea. You know what I mean? And you make them, and you can make some more, promotional stuff like that. But at the same time, you lose part of your royalty rate when you do this promote. And we don't know what that royalty rate is yet, but you lose assumably like a percentage or something like that of your royalty rate if it's played in a promotional way, like it's shoved in front of somebody.
Yeah.
And I think personally that this is also going into the market of, they know how much, all these people pay for the tastemakers on the platform, the people who make playlists and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So they're going, well, why don't we get a cut of that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a market for pushing your songs. So instead of you paying us, which would be very, look terrible marketing wise and stuff like that, we'll just take part of the royalty rate. and then we'll get our, part of the market share of people who are willing to pay for their music to get promoted in that way, aka artists.
Do you think
labels.
that's going to kill kind of the good thing about Spotify though? I mean, there is like
that's kind of what I was scared about too, because I like the analytical nature of these algorithms.
It's very social media, and a lot of people enjoy that, especially like coming up, they're going to start doing the Spotify year review stuff.
It's a little uncomfortable as a user to think like, oh, Spotify is going from an algorithm that knows what I like, knows the music I like and everything, and now it's going to force things in my face because people say, and they get a cut of it.
Well, and that's the thing I've always sought out against as a music listener. I've never wanted, like, if you're promoting it, I'm not going to listen to it. Like that kind of attitude. And I think a lot of listeners have that. Maybe not the average listener, but as someone who wants to discover more music and wants
I think it's definitely
way,
a mood that prevails the music industry since literally like the 50s and 60s, where you want to find music organically.
Yeah.
And you want to find it because your friend was like, hey, this is cool, you should listen to this.
Do you think it's going to be integrated organically to where you don't even know? Is that kind of the thing?
I have not seen anything
just playlisting like this is a
I have
sponsored
not seen
playlist.
anything that says like this is labeled or something like this. Again, this is a data point that affects personalized listening recommendations, listening history, songs added to playlist, time of day, weather, release dates, and songs from users with similar tastes, among other elements. So like anything recommended seems to be on the table.
Yeah.
So like if you have your daily mix, if you have your new music Friday kind of stuff, I think it's up to play. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Maybe if people feel uncomfortable with this, they could do that and go, this is a sponsored playlist. Like everybody on here was like, this is, and I think that would be fun to be like, oh, this is a playlist, let's talk. We had Thomas on last time. We have a lo-fi hip hop playlist. Yeah. Everybody on this playlist said this was my best song and I'm putting it up there. So that's like fun, stuff is to be like, this is what the guy said was his best song. Like that's an interesting gimmick rather than like the corporation wants you to listen to this song and so you buy things.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it can be the corporation wants to listen to it and buy things.
I don't know what the extent of like and this is completely alleged, is like, I don't know what the extent of, labels and big powers are now in Spotify.
Yeah. Well,
is it
too? Sorry,
go ahead.
But the royalty rate too. That's, I feel like, the most interesting part in terms of.
I think it's a marketing move on top of also a money move, because like I think if they said you have to do like a Facebook or an Instagram thing where you have to pay $5 to get your thing promoted, people would riot. People would be like, you guys are so anti-artist. You guys like. You don't even give us money in the first place. How are you going to make us pay $5 to $10 to boost a song on a playlist? And I think what you're saying about the concern about having, too many hands in the pot that aren't just in a not biased algorithm would go into play. Like, and so that's why I think they did the royalty rate is because they went, we want to get a cut because we developed this technology. This is our algorithm and stuff like that. And there's a big market of people, obviously from all the, quote unquote kind of payola that goes on in Spotify playlists and, music streaming playlists in general. But we don't want the shit storm that we would get if we were getting, you have to pay money to do this directly. I think it's kind of like what we're talking about Taylor Swift, where it's a little harder to understand for the public directly, and saying like your promotional royalty rate, and it only applies to I had to read a paragraph, and so we all understood what it meant.
Yeah.
That's way harder to convene than Spotify's going to charge us $5 to do this. That's the difference, I think. And so I think this is a smart move. I don't know if, if the user base will be bothered by it. I feel like me and you could be like, we'll be conspiracy theorists and the own playlist will be like, was this really here because of this? Or is it because of that damn data point? You know what I mean? Like you just put the hat on, and everything.
Yeah. I might be just kind of projecting a little bit of my own kind of, I feel like music
I think it's a general concern in like people who are very, I would say hyper users of streaming and stuff like that. It's like the organic and non-biased. I think because everybody I really hope, and I feel like most people would hope, that if you looked at a chart or something, that it was organic. Like, this is just what people wanted to listen to. Like, and this just shows, like, you know, there's kind of like a higher award to that, you know, being like, oh, people actually just want to listen to my songs rather than like, oh, a merch bundle put our or our merch bundle put our fucking song up 900 things because people thought our shirt was cool. So, you know, it's a big tool. It's going to be interesting if anybody grabs onto it. I think there would have to be major public, like, we're mad about this and we're organized together to get rid of it.
Well, as long as it's not like, because Spotify has ads already. Like, they already have like pushed albums. Like, when you open the app, it's like, oh, hey, Phoebe Bridgers' album is out today, stream it. Or it has like, you know, the banner.
That's what I was going to say, is it's not entirely like a non-biased source. I mean, I think it would be ignorant, and this is alleged, but I think it would be ignorant to say like that the big three labels don't have more power to push things at a higher rate.
Absolutely. I mean, you can even look at
Joe Blow on CD Baby.
Yeah, but even the way they approve who gets video stuff on Spotify.
And the people who work and you know what distribution has become in most of these things, it's working with these DSPs and being like, how can we get, you know, a Camila Cabello album to be your banner ad on when you open the Spotify app.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and I've always wondered too, I don't think they've been very public about who, like how much money that is to have that happen, or if they only offer it to certain artists as kind of like a beta thing.
I think they have ultimate control, but I think at the same time, they probably, again, alleged, that they probably think that, oh, you know, obviously if we think this organic artist will add, you know, more clout and people will come to Spotify just to listen to them, we'll probably push them. But it's washing hands, you know what I mean? In the sense of like, we're going to send you 500 artists, you know, every 2 weeks, basically, from one label, and versus Joe Blow, who's just like, I just put an album out every 9 months, you know, on CD Baby or something. So, yeah.
An interesting world of streaming.
Let's get into even weirder stuff by mixing real life with the music industry.
Colin, what day is it today?
It's election day.
It's the end of the world, Colin. That's what day it is today.
Which quick side note, I'll say this, Finn, so you don't have to. We're not endorsing or supporting any candidate on this podcast, but we have to talk about political issues because at the end of the day, business, especially the music industry, is political, and political leanings definitely affect sales and, you know, who gets targeted and stuff like that. Which, quick segment, I hope you voted. If you didn't vote, feel shame. There's another time that's going to come up. So be ready and vote if you didn't. It's too late for us to go vote. But if you didn't, feel shame.
I like how you said feel shame.
Feel shame.
I think that might be a good merch item, Colin. But yeah, so there's an interesting article on Billboard, and it's about music execs and employees aren't donating to the same political candidates. So
who could have guessed?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right? So Billboard has reported a sharp difference in political support and donations of music executives and their employees, and are, quote, further apart politically than they have ever been in the past.
I bet they have.
So examples that Billboard gives out, let's just kind of go through them. So Madison Square Garden. So Madison Square Garden is owned by James Dolan, and he donated $745,000, $387,000 of it in 2015 and 2016 to campaign committees. He is able to do this apparently due to a Supreme Court ruling, McCutcheon versus FEC, which removed caps on how much wealthy individuals could give direct joint fundraising committees. So direct, like stuff,
so the
basically.
Political Action Committee.
Yeah. Now, if you try to donate to a candidate to their website or something, there's actually so many laws put into place in terms of like how much you can donate as like a single person, so that, you know, some person doesn't just come and like wipe the floor, like a Bill Gates comes and just like, you know, gets it. But a lot of people get around by using super PACs and committees like this to do that. So just forewarning there. So the employees of Madison Square Garden overwhelmingly supported Democratic candidates, totaling $27,000 to Democrats for an average donation of $27 each. So they were obviously making smaller donations. So Liberty Media, who owns SiriusXM, Pandora, and a 35% stake in Live Nation. So company employees in 2020 gave $290,000 to Democrats and $92,000 to Republicans, a 2-to-1 margin. That is a huge margin. So company employees in 2016, just so that we compare, Democrats only received $134,000, while $385,000 was spent on Republican candidates. So there was a huge shift there in the past 4 years. So candidates who received the most money, the candidate who received the most money in 2020 was John Hickenlooper, former Democratic governor of Colorado, who received $94,814. And Greg Maffei, the chief executive of Liberty Media, supported Hickenlooper in a different race and donated $100,000 to Shared Purpose, which is a super PAC that supported his failed bid for Democratic nomination for 2020 presidential campaign. However, he also spent a total of $73,000 trying to keep the Senate in Republican control, which kind of contradicts a little bit of his spending, as we've seen. So employees who donated exclusively to Hickenlooper's campaign to unseat Republican Senator Cory Gardner, who received $11,200 from Maffei.
Oh, so the employees only gave money to Hickenlooper's campaign? Is
basically,
what I'm
most of them went to Hickenlooper.
All right,
and what's interesting is Maffei apparently has been donating both sides all over the place.
I got a theory about that, but keep going.
Yeah. Okay. So he's not the only person doing this, apparently.
100%. He's not the only one doing it.
So Billboard went on to say that in addition to supporting different candidates, Liberty employees and their bosses also use different methods of giving. Maffei and Malone pump hundreds of thousands into Republican coffers. Thank you. Through loosely regulated political committees and super PACs, while nearly all employee donations are made directly to the campaigns of Democrats, usually in the form of small donations.
Okay.
Methods of giving to each candidate also differs within the company. Maffei and Malone pump hundreds of thousands. I feel like I've already said that, so I'm going to skip there.
Yeah, let's just skip that.
So direct donations are also much more heavily regulated and capped at $5,600 per candidate, half being in the primary, another half in the general election. So very difference in opinions, apparently, within the company. Yeah. So AEG, owned and operated by Phil Anschutz, who didn't support Trump but spent $1.3 million supporting the re-election of Senate Republicans. Jay Marcanio, who is the company's chairman and chief executive, gave more than $27,000 to Democratic causes, including the Biden campaign.
Nice.
So he's lower on the totem pole in comparison to Phil, right?
Yeah, that's a very much smaller
So
number.
employees of AG made over 1,700 donations, totaling over $91K to Democrats, which was a 6% increase from the last election cycle. So a high-ranking AEG executive stated, "I don't love that Phil supports all these right-wing causes, but his political beliefs are so far detached from the work we do and our company values." He also noted that despite being very conservative, Anschutz supported LGBT causes and has given millions to groups some describes as being left of center. So another person who's kind of donating to both sides, it seems. So other political contributions made by the music industry billionaires don't neatly fit into any one category and include donations given in January 2017 to support Trump's inauguration, according to Billboard. So records from Open Secrets show that Warner Music Group owner Len Balaktov,
that was good. You got
I'm sorry, gave Trump's inauguration committee $1 million through his company Access Industries, as did Madison Square Garden. Los Angeles Rams owner Stan Kroenke, who built the $5 billion SoFi Stadium next to the Forum in Inglewood, California, also gave the committee $1 million. Both Malone and Maffei from Liberty Media gave the committee $250,000 each, and Sheldon Edelson of Las Vegas Sands Corporation, which owns the Vietnam Hotel and Las Vegas Review Journal, gave the inaugural committee the largest individual donation of $5 million.
I'm going to have to sorry. It's Venetian. Just so
Venetian. Thank you for
I didn't want to interrupt you. You were on a roll. There was a lot of names.
My mom is going to hate me.
Yeah, she's going to love that. I'll clip that out.
So there's a couple things we need to discuss here.
So
a lot of the first thing is that there is definitely a huge difference in terms of who the employees are supporting and who the owners are supporting.
Correct.
And a lot of that can impact who would want to work for some of these companies, how these companies are operated, why are they giving this money out? One of the main reasons is how much support they could get tax-wise from having Republican candidates in office.
I would also argue the lackadaisical nature towards the tax brackets.
Yes. Whereas the employees probably will not get much leeway there in terms of a lot of the Republican bills.
Exactly.
So it's interesting to see how much of a disconnect there is there. And I also wonder, too, how much of this is socially based.
That's what I was going to say,
and how much of it is business based, because to be honest, a lot of these people are probably in organizations. They mingle with a lot of other similar people of their stature, and a lot of them support the same candidates because to fit into the boys club, you gotta support.
I was also going to say that I feel like I think there's two ways of looking at this. There's the business side of it, which is like directly my business. How is it affected? How does this affect my daily life in terms of income? Mm-hmm. And then there's the other side, which is, the social aspect to it. I feel like, there's a chance that, some of these people are like, I believe in, maybe some more controversial opinions about social standards and stuff like that. So that's why I'm donating to it. I just personally believe it. Guarantee you there's got to be at least one or two in here that's the reason why. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's fine. But like at the same time, it's just like economically, I feel like if you were, in one of these higher positions, that it would be advantageous for you if you really did not care about the social aspects of it, or were in favor also with it, to probably go towards the Republican side, just because of the tax bracket breaks, the small the business loans and stuff like that are usually more into beneficiary to the actual businesses rather than the people working in them.
Yeah.
And more of the reliance in the Republican Party on a trickle down economics model. And so I feel like
we can argue whether it works.
Which we can argue, but like I think that's the economic reason why some of these very, wealthy people are voting for it, other than if they, super believe in one social side of the Republican ticket.
Yeah.
Then on the, if we go to the employees, it's kind of the opposite, where it's like this, generally I feel like the Democrats, have a thing where if you're an employee and you're not making, close to what these guys are making all the way at the top, then you'll probably want to vote Democrat, because you're going to have more of a, progressive tax system, and you're going to have, less taxes towards you generically. And then you're also, again, split that in half. They could have their own social things that they view, when it comes to that on the social side of the Democratic ticket. But on the monetary side, it also benefits the employees to vote more of that way. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want my personal experience, it's the more you get to the business side, and this kind of shows it, the more you get more to the right side in terms of like higher
you're
up.
Leaning, and
there are more rarities to be towards the left, and it's very much about the economic side. Again, outliers with the social side. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. I definitely think that we're not immune. I know this is this is awkward stuff. I mean, we talk real shit on this podcast, but like this is very awkward stuff to talk about. But this is important because this is the kind of stuff that like companies can get rallied over. You know what I mean? People go, we're not going to buy any products from these people because, this guy donated this money to this person, or, stuff like that. Well, so that's why it's important on the business side too, other than the taxes and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I'd like to reiterate, like that we said before, although it's the music business, sometimes people have this, you see the billboards, you see the showcases of it. Sometimes you don't know that although it may have a very blue front, it sometimes has red backing. in terms of
right.
You know what I mean?
I would argue if you the thing is that at the same time, I feel like it's a generality and it's kind of true to a level. It's not a complete truth that if the higher you get up in like bigger business and stuff like that, you'll see more of that right-leaning kind of stuff because of the economic principles of it.
Yeah.
Now, the music industry, cool has the hipper people in it, the people who are on the top of it,
younger
on
audiences.
News.
It's always
right.
You're always
so
trying
you
to get a
feel
younger
like,
audience.
You feel like it would just automatically be like, if you didn't know that much about, how much business structure is really in the music industry, it'd be like, oh, they're all probably towards the left, because we all, everybody in there is like usually like cool people who are really progressive, and
but
that's
sometimes it's not the case.
I would argue, it's not the case. I mean, being as a person that's and me and Joe have done that, being people who's worked primarily in the Southern music market, it's definitely not the case. Being people who've worked with country music, definitely not the case. So like that's kind of the thing. And so, you're going to have to make your personal decisions at home if this bothers you enough that, if you wanted to support this company or you didn't want to support this company. But at the same time, if you're, thinking about it doesn't matter to me, you also have to think this could matter to somebody. And it takes sometimes enough people together to rally against a company that could really hurt PR wise and straight up monetarily. We're in the age of social media where we can get all together and stuff, and it's so easy to go, this guy did this thing, donate all this money to this candidate I don't like, we should all boycott him, we should boycott the whole company. You know what I mean? And so like that's a thing that can happen. And so like even if it doesn't bother you, I think it's important as a listener to think that in your mind is like, this is a real deal that could happen. At the same time though, like I'm not ignorant about it. Most of the higher people up there are Republican. Like if you're, it depends on your brand that they represent. Like if you're like,
well, too, at another case, a lot of these owners and stuff are very hands off.
Right.
In terms of the business. So,
but even
you can
then,
make
they're
their
like
argument then, but they're still reaping the benefits
right.
of it. So.
And so like, even that, like, again, you have to talk about branding too. Is like, let's talk about the country model. I mean, like if, we're in a mostly country label and it was like, oh, the top guy donated more to right candidates or something. Their fan base is mostly country listeners, and a lot of country listeners, not all of them, so hold out if you're going to get mad at me, are towards the right side compared to a lot of the music industry. So that's not a fan base that knows them enough that would get super mad and end everything about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's important to know, but, you got to think it's definitely a thing that's seen in most business, and the music industry is not immune,
Absolutely. Well, Colin, what's YouTube doing right now?
Okay, YouTube's doing some crazy shit because it seemed kind of bleak at one point when the coronavirus first started. So YouTube generated this quarter $5 billion in ad revenue in a single quarter. And YouTube Music has over 30 million subscribers. So let's talk about YouTube Music first. YouTube Music has been a platform for 5 years and has only been a standalone service for 2. YouTube Music was also only at 15 million subscribers, including the free ones, in May of 2019. So Alphabet, Google's parent company, if you didn't know, announced on October 29th that YouTube Music had passed 30 million paid subscribers and another 5 million on free trials, which again, together, they were only at 50 million a year, from then. So basically there's 2 models for YouTube Music. If you guys don't know, just for clarity, there's a subscriber to the app itself, which is just a standard $9.99 per month in the United States. And then there's also $11.99 per month subscription to YouTube Premium, which bundles in access to paid for YouTube Music. For sake of just being transparent, I use YouTube Music, and I'd have to argue that the $11.99 per model one is very enticing for that, because you get no ads on YouTube and you get that, not an endorsement, but a very smart business move on YouTube's part. Again, to recap, YouTube Music had amassed only Only 10 million subscribers in 9 months between January and September. What a pitiful amount. To compare to Spotify, because Spotify is the big dog and sets the standard for everything. Spotify has added 20 million subscribers for a total of 144 million in the same time period. So they still got a ways to go to even be in the top 3. So switching over to YouTube itself. So actually, the videos on YouTube. YouTube made $5 billion in ad revenue in quarter 3, which I said. And this was a huge increase from $3.8 billion made in quarter 2 ad revenues. And this was kind of based on, everyone was kind of scared because the pandemic was thought to hurt YouTube ad revenue, as that $3.8 billion in quarter 2 was only up $200 million from quarter 2 of 2019. So people were really worried. And clearly, because everyone's inside, we're seeing some more ads. So if quarter 4 makes $5 billion in ad revenue, YouTube will make $18 billion in ad revenue for 2020. Which is insane.
That's crazy.
For the music industry, the real question is what cut of this ad revenue will the music industry receive? So analytics firm PEX recently released a report suggesting that music became, quote, more valuable on YouTube in 2019 versus 2018. PEX's data shows that despite making up just 5% of the content on the platform, music videos accounted for 22% of all YouTube views last year, a 2% increase on 2018. In addition, PEX noted that music videos were responsible for 83% of the videos exceeding 1 billion views on YouTube last year.
Yeah, I mean, especially with K-pop groups and
I mean, how many times have we gone on here and been like, BTS has broken a record at YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, that's the real question here is kind of like, will this ad revenue trickle into the music industry in an amount that seems fair? Because clearly we're pulling some weight.
I'd like to say I hope so, but to be honest, even at the highest level, a lot of the times music gets shafted in a lot of ways, especially with receiving money. So we'll see.
I would not be surprised if it's less money and more of, hey, big 3, you want some more promotional ads for a discounted price? You know what I mean? Because here's the thing. We always talk about Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music and stuff like that. And those are big deals in the paid service. But the number one place to watch music of all viewers is YouTube. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of why
MTV is not the place anymore. It's YouTube.
It's YouTube, and YouTube has been it. And the problem with YouTube for a lot of people in the music industry is it's free. Mm-hmm. You can listen to any song on there for free. You know what I mean? And so even when we had the CD crisis of the early 2000s and stuff like that, where people didn't want to buy CDs because you could get it on Napster, we all thought, oh, we'll just go to streaming. And then you can pay $10 a month. Then there's YouTube, which is free. And you know what I mean? And the thing with it is the thing with YouTube is it's not restricted other than ads. So on Spotify, if you don't have, premium, it's hard to pick individual songs, for instance. And in a lot of those, things, they try to make it even one step further than YouTube. And so you want to pay for the service. But YouTube has always been the thorn in a lot of rights holder sides when it comes to that, because it's like a double-edged sword. It's like you get so much promotion because everybody can watch it for free, but you're not going to get paid in a regular amount. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's on every level of creator on YouTube.
Right.
Essentially.
And so that's kind of the thing with it. It's just it's on every level of creator, but specifically the music industry, we're used to these payout models where at least we have what's kind of known as I gotta remember the term. It's a subscriber minimum fee, basically. So I'm not getting into completely streaming calculations, but basically there's a baseline based on the number of paying subscribers these companies have to pay record labels usually, that's written in their agreements. And YouTube, no, there's no premium other than the premium side, which I just talked about earlier, which is making really big strides. And I really think it's because of that $11.99 thing. Mm-hmm. I don't see people buying individual YouTube. I see people buying premium and then having YouTube Music as an additional bonus.
Yeah, which it's a great model. And you You being a user, I've actually got to see like the way it's laid out. It looks exactly like Spotify.
But they're doing everything that the industry leader is doing at Spotify. You know what I mean? So like it's smart. But like the difference between this and Spotify, well, not the difference because Spotify kind of has that Hulu deal, is it's a very attractive price for not having ads on YouTube and also having a subscription service. That's the reason I don't have another subscription service.
Is the YouTube Music, does it also integrate video?
Yes, to an extent.
Okay.
I think it's annoying, but that's just me. It's like you can actually do in the app, and I turned it off, but if you're really into it, you can do songs by video. And so like there's literally a widget at the top that says song or video, and you can click to one side or the other. And in the box, usually you have your little play wheel and your volume thing. In that box that shows the album work, it plays the music video.
Okay.
So like, I guess if you were on a binge spree and you want to watch music videos like all in a row,
you could do that.
You could do that, but like, I don't know how incentivizing for me personally, it's nothing. Like I'll go. And the other thing is I'd rather watch it on the site. I like the better UI better,
you're sitting down, you're watching it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So another question. So where are the files on? Are they on YouTube and then YouTube Music is just pulling it from YouTube?
YouTube, or is it... like we talked about before, Alphabet, Google's parent company, was like, we're getting rid of Google Play, which is the bane of my existence because I love Google Play. But
I think you're the only person I know who said that.
I know people who are on Google Play. It's a very attractive Android option, but I'm probably one of the few people that uses it on an iPhone. But like the thing with it is like, they had all those rights there, and they basically migrated. They forced migrated.
So that's where the files live.
That's where they're from. I think they're probably on like some different proprietary.
Because I was wondering if it was going to be like MP3.8.
No, it's not like when you. And that's a branding problem with YouTube. Like when you look up a song, it will give you the actual master file as opposed to like that shitty music video lyric screen
uploaded.
You can get to that in there, but there's no
the
point.
Blue screen.
I guess that is a bonus of YouTube Music, is that if they don't have it, it looks in YouTube afterwards.
Yeah.
So like, let's say they don't have the rights to a particular song, that's fine. But if they didn't upload it to, YouTube Music, it's on YouTube. And so you can look through YouTube and listen to the YouTube file, like on your app. Also, the other thing I want to add about it is that, oh man, I just had it. Like, basically, YouTube Music does very well at integrating actual YouTube videos with it that you may want to watch, because there is some content and songs that only exist on YouTube that don't exist on regular streaming things. Okay. So if you had a song like, and we're talking about mainly like live versions is a great example, but like, okay, I talked about Wolfpack the other day, or like 2 episodes ago, is like Wolfpack has a lot of like only stuff that's on YouTube because they have such a YouTube presence. So if I want to listen to that in a playlist and not have to go, okay, pause Spotify, let's go to the YouTube app, I want to listen to this song, I can integrate those YouTube only things into a playlist.
Okay.
Which is like a cool feature of it. Again, it's kind of limited because we've gone past the part where it's like, this is only a YouTube song, because everybody will now, because of the ease of use of putting it on other streaming stuff, it's like, okay, here we go. It's on Spotify. It's on this. So yeah. So YouTube Music, I'm not laughing. Apparently there's 29,999 other 1,000 people paying for it. So I'm not alone. So
you are not alone, Colin.
Michael Jackson starts soon.
So, moving on. Will SaveLive save the stages? So, this is an article from the New York Times and Polestar. Many independent venues across the United States are hurting while the coronavirus pandemic has cut profits down to almost nothing, and planning for in-person events seems unobtainable, even with the prospect of drive-ins or social distanced events. It's very light stuff we're talking about here.
Yeah.
However, many organizations have popped up in order to rectify the situation and have sought out political and monetary support in order to sustain independent venues around the country. So calling back to political support, it's another thing that's very important. especially in situations like now. So the one that you have probably heard of the most is NIVA, the National Independent Venue Association, which has put on virtual performances to raise money as well as calling on political representatives to funnel funding to independents around the country. Another organization is coming to town, however, and the man heading it is Lollapalooza creator and former WME giant Mark Geiger, who announced his newest endeavor, SaveLive. According to the New York Times, SaveLive has already received $75 million, and that the company's plan is to invest in dozens of clubs around the country and buy at least 51% of the equity in the businesses to help them expand once concerts return at full steam, which is not expected to happen until 2022 or later. However, not everyone is on board with this method, and according to Frank Riley of High Road Touring, might not be the independent enough. Riley stated, "Geiger's solution on some level scares me. He's going to buy distressed properties for money on the dollar and end up owning 51% of their business. Is that independent? I don't know. But it does save the platforms on which things grow and where artists are sustained." Geiger and John Fogelman, a co-founder, say that the venue deals will be partnerships and that despite the controlling majority shares, they would not seek to flip assets. The Times went on to state that, quote, "Even with clubs now dark, SaveLive projects that it will be profitable within 4 years. To a degree, indie venues' vulnerability is rooted in their very independence. Most operate on thin margins and have limited financial resources. As SaveLive partners, Geiger said they would gain economics of scale as well as access to favorable deals for ticketing or sponsorship, suggesting that SaveLive would, to some degree, reassemble a mom-and-pop version of Live Nation or AEG, the giant companies that now dominate the touring business. Geiger, like many industry experts, are very adamant that the touring industry will be very lucrative once it comes back and that artists will want to tour more than ever in order to get more cash inflow. So there's a lot of things to unpack there as well.
First off, this man has figured out how to be a savior model, literally in PR.
Yeah.
And basically just have a way of buying out venues. That's what this is.
I am agreeing.
He has figured out the best PR I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. But in the article too, I mean, it even kind of implies that he's very much higher level executive that's like very wealthy. He's made tons of money from big companies. So how is he going to know what true indie is, in that regard? And also, you're buying 51% of the company's stake.
It's a majority stake.
And he even said, oh, well, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, it does. It's going to matter the day where you have to make a decision. It doesn't really matter.
Okay, take 49 then. You know what I mean?
I don't want to say he didn't say it doesn't matter. He just stated it's more of a partnership. Well, everything's a partnership.
That's not right. It's not a partnership. You're 51% of the business.
You're gonna own it. Basically.
You have controlling assets of the business. Okay, so here's my opinion about it. I think this man has figured out how to do some great PR for basically trying to buy out things. And at a level of it, I agree that it's a nice thing to do because there's not anybody else who's trying to buy these necessarily. Some of these venues might not have buyers, if that makes sense. I mean, maybe the larger ones, but in the independent scheme, not every venue is going to survive this and have a buyer that will continue on its legacy. And that can be important in individual communities, especially when you don't have a lot of venues in some place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So having it exist is nice and not having it go down is better. But at the same time, this man is buying 51% of the company. He owns the company. He can do controlling assets in the company. That's what he's doing. He is, and I guarantee, look, I can't say what it is, but it would be very easy for him because he has 51% of the company. If let's buy these venues while they're down and out, like that guy said, let's buy them for a cheaper price than they were valued. Eventually music will come back and then we can sell them for a way higher price. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is, And so I just think the thing is he's made wonderful PR, and to an extent it is a nice gesture. You know, if he's buying things that, you know, maybe would just die and a community would lose an important part of its, you know, culture, you know, cultural centers and stuff because it would just be abandoned, you know, or something like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like he has so much conflict of interest from this idea of him being like a saint or this organization being a saint, not specifically Geiger.
Well, and I think it creates unnecessary competition with NIVA, you know?
You like, lose so much power because they're not independent anymore. They're owned by all the same guy. And if he has 51% stake, so if he bought a bunch of businesses and then he was like, nope, we're not doing this shit. He can do that. I don't know if he would.
This is for profit. It's not a non-profit.
Right.
It guises under a non-profit, but it's definitely a for-profit model. And it just seems, to me, it does seem a little... little weird.
I just think my thing with it is like there's no
I mean, do I think that business wise is this a good business move? Probably.
Yeah, if you're a business like move. If I was, you know, like let's talk about it from both sides. If I was, you know, someplace out there in the middle, let's say like we're in Wisconsin somewhere and we're an independent venue and medium-sized acts come through and it's not looking good. We're running out of money, you know, all this stuff like that. You know, it might be nice to continue the venue, have your employees paid for and not have that stress on your life anymore because you have 49% of it, but like that, you know,
but you're still making profit.
You're still making money and you're allowed to keep going. Yeah. That's nice. And again, I talked about the cultural thing. That's a really nice thing to have that weight taken off of you. I just think that it's definitely in a level predatory to be like, oh, I'm just here trying to help. That's it. Instead of being like, I'm going to be 51% of your business, we're going to be business partners. You know, he does say partnership, but like, I don't like, you know, I don't like the branding. I don't like that it's SaveLive. That's the part of it that gives me a bad thing. If it was, you know, the Geiger company and he was like, hey, you know, I believe in this venue. I want to buy 51% of it. Here's some money I raised from a bunch of investors. That's fine. But since it literally has the word save in it, it really puts a bad taste in my mouth.
It literally, like when I first read it, I was like, is this a nonprofit? You know, but it doesn't sound like a nonprofit. And then I had to go back and be like, wait, no, there's no way it can't be because he's talking about being partners with these venues. Right. For later down the road.
So like, I don't know. It just like, I get it. If I'm in the position of the venue owner and like, this is the difference between, you know, 20 people having a job at the end of the day, me being able to pay my bills and a cultural center of the community going down, I might have to take this. I'm not going to be very happy, but.
Well, and then you could always start another venue elsewhere too. That might be the case, depending on if you have a non-compete.
The branding just bothers me. That's the thing that bothers me the most about this is the way it's branded and stuff like that. And like, look, this like, there's that whole thing. What's his name? Warren Buffett bought all those paper companies like for no reason. I don't know if you know this. He bought a bunch of newspaper.
I didn't know you were going to drop a Warren Buffett reference right now. But
that's kind of what it's like. This guy has raised enough money and he's a venture capitalist in a way. And he's going into these venues and going, will you give me 51%?
Yeah.
He's
essentially the one buying people out of
and obviously he's probably some part, you know, maybe the head of the SaveLive organization, and that could change, you know, leadership. But what I'm saying about it is kind of akin to that, is unlike, you know, Warren Buffett being like, I want to buy out all these news things because I feel like it's a good investment for me or I can do something for it in the future. It would be like Warren Buffett being like, I'm trying to save print. I'm trying to save the print medium from going out. That's why you should buy with me, because I'm really a savior in this. That's what I don't like about this at all.
Yeah, like, it's a little...
Look, like I get it.
It's a little weird.
It's like I said, it would be a nice change if I'm a person that wants to, you know, still get my share of the profits, have all my employees go and not lose a pillar of a community somewhere. But at the same time, it's very like, Oh man, it's like the bad part of a movie where like the guy has to sell his like house or something, to save, like, it's like where what's the stereotypical one where it's like the farm has to be bought out by corporate America. That's like what it's like for me to read that. So yeah. All right. Well,
I'm glad you put that in my brain.
That's how it's like. Joe, let's talk about some music we listen to.
Oh yeah.
All right.
My favorite part.
So I'll go my little tirade real quick. I've been, by the way, I've been listening to this girl. Her name is, it's a CD. Joe gave it to me when he used to work at WMTS Radio in Murfreesboro. And he brought home, when we lived together as roommates, he brought home a basket of CDs, and I looked through them because I'm that kind of person. And there's this girl, and her name was a girl named T. And I can't find anything else this girl has made past this album that I found. Mm-hmm. And it's called Wait by the Rabbit Hole. And I still have the CD of it in that closet. And basically, I really like it. It's very like vibey and 60s and kind of like, I don't know, like sassy too. I think it's one of those artists, and she does an album before that I listened to that I really like too. But like, it seems like she either got out of the industry or something, or did something like that. I can't find any other information other than a Bandcamp page, which this is her latest album from 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So like, I hope she would keep doing music, because I felt like when I was listening to it, I was like, God, this girl's like one album away from having that record that just goes.
Yeah.
And I feel like she was a little before her time. And it was like before Americana really became Americana and actually had the branding to support it. She could have just gone in that realm and been completely fine.
Yeah.
It's called Girl Named T, Down the Rabbit Hole, I think is what it's called.
We're going to have to listen to that, because that's
Wait by the Rabbit Hole. That's what it is.
Wait by the Rabbit Hole.
So
cool.
Joe, what did you listen to?
I've been listening to that new Gorillaz, which I never thought I'd say ever. I love Gorillaz, but I just think it's crazy that they're back, that project is just something wonderful. Especially the Beck song on there. I think that's the best song so far. The Valley of the Pagans.
Oh, God.
That's a good song, man. Another artist is actually, I guess he was local. He's not local anymore. He went back to Texas, but Nico Crow, with his song Kill, great. I think it's his best song.
Yeah?
100%. Yeah, I think it's his best song. I can't wait to hear more stuff from him. And I think he's going to blow up, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And what else have I been listening to? Another artist, similar vibes, named Choker. And also Busta Rhymes' new single, Look Over Your Shoulder, with Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've just been digging it.
I'm surprised you're saying that, but
yeah, I don't know. I've just been digging that song, man. And Freddie Gibbs. Freddie Gibbs all the way.
Yeah, you will not let that go.
I love Freddie Gibbs. Hey. Don't diss Freddie Gibbs.
It's not bad. It's just every day of our life. No. It's good.
I like love
Freddie Gibbs. I know you do. Oh, man.
Yeah. But, that's Showbiz, baby.